Sergeant Sarah Martinez had only 3 bullets left in her pouch that morning as she prepared for her final patrol. But 6 hours later, those 3 bullets would save 47 lives in a small village and change the course of her entire life forever. Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez's steel boots echoed against the dusty ground as she led her final patrol out of the U.S. base in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. The scorching morning sun beat down on her helmet, and sweat already beaded on her forehead despite the early hour. In 3 months, she would be home in Texas, done with her 3rd deployment. "Martinez, check your frequency," Lieutenant Johnson's voice crackled through the radio. Sarah adjusted her radio and leaned into the microphone. "This is Alpha 7, frequency clear. Ready to go, sir." Specialist Mike Thompson, walking beside her, glanced over with a knowing look. "Excited about civilian life in 3 months?" Sarah smiled, though her eyes held a hint of uncertainty. "Of course. But right now, I'm focused on this mission." The patrol consisted of 4 soldiers: Sarah, Mike, Specialist David Chun, and Private First Class Maria Rodriguez. All were experienced, but none had seen as much combat as Sarah. At 28, she had served in 3 different countries over the past 6 years, earning respect and scars in equal measure. As they walked toward the village, Sarah checked her ammunition pouch. 3 bullets. That was all. Normally, they would never patrol with so little ammunition, but this final assignment was supposed to be routine: a simple check-in with villagers, assess the situation, and return to base. "Village is 500 meters ahead," Chin reported, lowering his binoculars. Sarah stopped and scanned the area. Something felt wrong. Normally at this hour, they would hear children's voices echoing from the village, but everything was eerily quiet. "Hold up," Sarah said. "This doesn't feel right." When the village came into view, Sarah's bad feeling was confirmed. The streets were completely empty. House doors were shut tight, and no human sounds came from anywhere. "This is really strange," Rodriguez muttered. "Just yesterday, children were playing here." Sarah activated her radio. "Base, this is Alpha 7. Unusual situation at the village. No civilians in sight." "Copy Alpha 7. Report status," came the response. Sarah turned to her team. "Combat formation. But stay calm. Maybe it's just early." When they checked the first house, the door opened slightly. An elderly woman emerged, but her face was filled with fear. "Hello," Sarah said, using the few Pashto words she had learned. "What's happening here?" The woman looked around nervously and whispered, "They came back. They arrived last night. They took all the men." Sarah's heart rate quickened. "Who? How many?" "Taliban. Many of them. They have weapons. They set up camp in the village square." Mike approached Sarah. "What's she saying?" "Taliban took over the village last night. They've captured all the men as prisoners," Sarah explained. Chin reached for his radio. "We need to call for backup immediately." "No, wait," Sarah said. "Let's understand the situation first." She turned back to the elderly woman. "How many of them are there?" "Maybe 20 to 25 people. They're at the other end of the village, in the square." Sarah pulled out her map. The village square was about 800 meters from here. It was surrounded by open ground, making approach difficult. "Where are the men?" she asked. "In the big house next to the square. They locked them all in there." Sarah assessed the situation. 25 Taliban militants, unknown number of prisoners, and only 4 people in her team. Plus, their ammunition was critically low. "We need to report this to base," Rodriguez said. "How long until backup arrives?" Sarah asked. "At least 2 hours," Mike replied. Sarah looked at the elderly woman. "What will the Taliban do in 2 hours?" The woman's face grew even paler. "They'll leave the village in the afternoon. They'll take the men with them." Sarah moved her team away from the house for a private consultation. "Let's analyze the situation," Sarah said. 25 Taliban militants, approximately 20 to 25 civilian prisoners. We're 4 people with low ammunition. "We should wait for backup," Chin said. "This is a suicide mission." "By the time backup arrives, they'll be long gone," Sarah countered. "Those men will never be seen again." Mike understood what Sarah was thinking. You have a plan, don't you? Sarah spread the village map on the ground. Look, there are 3 buildings around the village square. Taliban camp is in the center, prisoners are in the side building. I see, Rodriguez said. You want to pin them down with crossfire. Even better. Distract them and rescue the prisoners. Chen shook his head. This is too risky, Sarah. It could destroy us. Doing nothing will destroy those 25 men, Sarah said. They're our responsibility. Sarah picked up her radio. Base, this is Alpha 7. Situation report, 25 Taliban militants in village, approximately 25 civilian prisoners. Requesting backup, but situation is urgent. Copy Alpha 7. Backup is en route, will be there in 2 hours. Maintain safe distance. Sarah turned off the radio and looked at her team. Decision time. If we wait, those people will be killed or kidnapped. If we act, maybe we can save them. We could get captured too, Chen said. True. But as soldiers, that's why we're here. Mike saw the determination in Sarah's eyes. Tell us your plan. Sarah pulled out a small pair of binoculars and looked toward the hill above the village. Chen, you'll go up there. From there, you can see both the village square and the escape routes. You'll be our eyes and ears. Chen nodded. Understood. Rodriguez, you'll approach from the west side of the village. That's the closest position to the building where the prisoners are held. What about you and Mike? We'll approach from the east. We'll draw their attention to us. Sarah folded the map. The goal is to get the Taliban away from the square. While they're dealing with us, Rodriguez will rescue the prisoners. What's my ammunition situation? Rodriguez asked. We all have very little. That's why every bullet counts. We won't fire unnecessarily. Mike looked worried. What's the escape plan? After rescuing the prisoners, we'll withdraw through the valley north of the village. We'll meet up with backup forces there. Sarah looked at her team. This is a voluntary mission. Nobody is forced to do this. Chen was the first to answer. I'm in. Me too, Rodriguez said. Mike smiled. I've known you for so many years, Sarah. I won't leave you behind. Thank you, Sarah said. Then let's get ready. Chen started toward the hill. He would climb the steep slope in about 20 minutes. Sarah, Mike, and Rodriguez began advancing toward the village. Radio silence, Sarah whispered. We'll only communicate in emergencies. As they approached the village, they heard Taliban voices for the first time. They were speaking Arabic and laughing. There was a disturbing casualness in their voices that made Sarah's stomach turn. Chen's voice came over the radio. In position. Clear view. I see 8 people in the square. They're walking around the tent. Where are the rest? Sarah whispered. Must be inside the buildings. Light guard. Rodriguez separated and headed toward the west side. Sarah and Mike continued approaching from the east point 200 meters from the village square. Sarah stopped. She could see the Taliban tent. There really were 8 people outside. Rodriguez, are you in position? She whispered. I'm next to the prisoner building. There are 2 guards outside. Sarah took a deep breath. Chun, can you see the other Taliban? No, only the ones in the square are visible. Okay. Everyone get ready. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Sarah's first bullet hit a barrel next to the Taliban tent. The metallic sound echoed, and immediately the Taliban started shouting. Create chaos. Sarah yelled. Mike also started firing. The Taliban began running around in panic. It was exactly as Sarah had planned. Rodriguez now, she called out. Chun reported the situation from the hill. Taliban are moving east. They're coming toward your position. Sarah and Mike changed positions. The Taliban followed them, just as Sarah wanted. Meanwhile, Rodriguez approached the prisoner building. The 2 guards were focused on the fighting in the square. Past the guards, Rodriguez whispered. Entering the building. A spark of hope ignited in Sarah's heart. The plan was working. But then everything changed. Chen's voice came over the radio. Alert! New Taliban unit approaching from the south of the village. At least 15 more people. Sarah's heart stopped. This wasn't in the calculation. How many minutes do we have? She asked. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe less. Sarah looked at Mike. We need to change the plan. How much time does Rodriguez have? I don't know. But she needs to be fast. Sarah grabbed her radio. Rodriguez, what's your status? Found the prisoners. Door is locked, trying to open it. Hurry. New enemy unit is coming. Sarah looked at her last 2 bullets. That was all there was. Rodriguez's voice came over the radio. Got the door open. Prisoners are here. 23 people. What's their condition? Sarah asked. Most are wounded, but can walk. How do we get them out? Sarah looked around. The Taliban were still searching for them, but the new unit would arrive soon. Chun, status on the southern unit. 3 minutes left. They're approaching fast. Sarah made a decision. Rodriguez, take the prisoners to the north exit. We'll meet there. What about you? We'll keep their attention on us. Sarah turned to Mike. Ready. I'm with you. Sarah fired her last bullet. The Taliban had determined their direction and were approaching. We're running. Sarah shouted. Sarah and Mike started running toward the north exit, leaving the Taliban behind. Gunfire sounds came from behind them. Chun, is the exit clear? Clear. Rodriguez is approaching the exit with the prisoners. Sarah's lungs were burning, but she didn't stop. When they crossed the village boundary, she saw Rodriguez and the prisoners. Is everyone here? Sarah asked. Yes, 23 people. All alive. Sarah heard the Taliban voices behind them. They were approaching. We're moving toward the valley. Fast but orderly. The descent into the valley was difficult. 23 civilians, 4 soldiers, and a 40-person Taliban unit behind them. Sarah was leading the way. Chun, can you monitor our rear? Yes, they're following. But maintaining distance. Sarah helped a wounded villager. The man had been shot in the leg. How long until backup arrives? Mike asked. Sarah looked at her watch. 1 hour. Can we hold out for 1 hour at this pace? We have to. Rodriguez called from behind. Sarah, one of the wounded is in bad shape. We need to stop. Sarah turned back. A young man was about to pass out. 5-minute break, Sarah said. Sarah examined the wounded man. He had been shot in the chest and was losing blood. I have a first aid kit, Rodriguez said. Sarah called to Chin, pursuit status. They seem to be maintaining distance. But they're not giving up. Sarah helped bandage the wounded man's wound. How do you feel? The man answered in a weak voice, thank you. You saved us. We haven't saved you yet. We still have a way to go. After 5 minutes, they set off again. The valley was getting deeper. This is good, Sarah said. If we position ourselves here, we can stop them. Mike examined the surroundings. There's only one passage. Narrow. Exactly. They'll have to wait there. Sarah explained her plan. Chun will go up the hill, we'll hold the passage. We'll keep the civilians safe in the back. Sarah, Mike, and Rodriguez took positions at the narrow passage of the valley. Chun was back to surveillance from above. Ammunition status. Sarah asked. 0, Mike said. Me too, Rodriguez said. Sarah looked at her last bullet. 1 bullet. Chun, where are the Taliban? 200 meters away. They're approaching. Sarah assessed the situation. 40 Taliban militants, 1 bullet, and 23 civilian lives. Try the radio, she told Rodriguez. Rodriguez turned on the radio. Base, this is Alpha 7. We urgently need backup. Alpha 7, backup is 30 minutes away. 30 minutes is too long, Mike said. Sarah made a decision, we're going to bluff. How? We'll act like we have a lot of ammunition. Sarah hid behind a large rock and shouted, Stop! Military! Drop your weapons. The Taliban stopped. Their leader shouted something. Sarah asked Chin, "What did he say?" "He wants us to surrender. Tell him we have a rocket launcher." Chen shouted something in Pashto to the Taliban leader. The Taliban retreated. "They believed it," Chen said. "How long will this bluff last?" Mike asked. "I don't know. They'll figure it out soon." 10 minutes passed. The Taliban were maintaining distance but not approaching. "Chen, any movement?" "No. They're waiting." Then everything changed. The sound of helicopters came from the distance. Sarah's face lit up. "Back up." Rodriguez shouted. 3 Apache helicopters appeared over the valley. The Taliban began fleeing in panic. "Alpha 7, this is Hawk 1. Report your position." Sarah grabbed the radio. "Hawk 1, we're at the valley passage. We rescued 23 civilian prisoners. Taliban are fleeing." "Copy Alpha 7. Excellent work. Do you need medical assistance?" "Yes, we have wounded." 10 minutes later, rescue helicopters arrived. They evacuated the wounded and civilians. As Sarah was helping the last civilian onto the helicopter, an elderly man took her hand. "Thank you," he said in Pashto. Sarah smiled. "You're welcome." When they returned to base, Colonel Richards met them. "Martinez, report." Sarah stood at attention. "Sir, we identified 25 Taliban militants in the village. We rescued 23 civilian prisoners. No casualties." "What was your ammunition status?" "Minimal, sir. Only a few bullets." Colonel Richards looked into Sarah's eyes. "You and your team saved 23 lives today. Congratulations." "Thank you, sir. But next time, wait for backup." "Understood." Sarah smiled. "Understood, sir." That evening, as Sarah sat in her tent, Mike came over. "What are you thinking about today?" "That we made the right decision," Sarah said. "You saved 23 people with 1 bullet." "No. We saved them as a team." Sarah began writing her letter. She was writing to her mother, "Mom, I had a very important day today. Sometimes in life, we make the most important decisions in very little time. Today was one of those days." 3 months later, Sarah was home in Texas. But the incident in that village had changed her. Sarah decided to continue her military career. A week later, the Pentagon called. "Sergeant Martinez, we want you for a special assignment." "What kind of assignment?" "Civilian rescue operations. We're forming a specialist team." Sarah looked out the window. "I accept." Because Sarah now knew that sometimes even 1 bullet can change a world. Sarah Martinez's story is about courage, leadership, and making the right decisions. Sometimes our resources may be limited, but when our purpose is clear, seemingly impossible things become possible. The decision Sarah made that day not only saved 23 people, but also changed the direction of her own life. The story that began with 1 bullet became the turning point of a career and a life. This story shows us that true leadership emerges not in the abundance of our resources, but in their scarcity. The courage shown by Sarah Martinez represents the potential that exists within each of us. Sometimes we have only 1 bullet, but if we choose the right target, that 1 bullet can change everything.